Hey everyone, welcome back to today's video. This is my notification squad shoutouts for today's election night. So what I wanted to talk to you guys about is my upcoming videos. I'm really looking forward to doing a lot of the suggestions that I've gotten in my past videos. So I'm looking for more suggestions. So could you guys comment things you'd like to see me do in future election nights? Like I did Ivanka Trump versus Donald Trump. That one was a suggestion. And I'm looking to do more hypothetical matchups. Things that aren't likely to happen but you'd like to see. So just comment those below. Right now I'm going to stay within the 2020 range, and maybe in the future I'll move down to like 1964 if Kennedy wasn't assassinated, or things like that. Or if Richard Nixon wasn't impeached, and it would just be a matchup of his vice president versus Jimmy Carter. So there's just a lot of things that I could do in the future, so I want you guys to comment suggestions below so I know what to do. Good evening. Welcome to Election Night 2024. Tonight we have Julian Castro from the great state of Texas versus Scott Walker, the incumbent governor from the state of Wisconsin. Let's look at the electoral map from the 2020 election so we have a pre-basis for what we're likely to see in the 2024 election. Donald Trump was re-elected over Elizabeth Warren 331 to 207, with Elizabeth Warren at 207 electoral votes while Donald Trump took 331, followed by taking back the states of Minnesota, Colorado, and Nevada. It is now time for the 7 p.m. poll closings: Kentucky, South Carolina, Georgia, Indiana, Vermont, and Virginia. Out of the state of Vermont, we can now project that this state will go to Julian Castro, 65.3% of the vote to 29.1%, with Bernie Sanders taking 5%. Out of the state of Kentucky, Scott Walker is the projected winner of their 8 electoral votes. Out of the state of Indiana, Scott Walker is the projected winner, 11 electoral votes. Now out of the state of Georgia, it is too close to call. Julian Castro is in the lead, 16 electoral votes from the state. The state of South Carolina is too early to call, 9 electoral votes. And the electoral map is on your screen now, 3 electoral votes for Julian Castro to 19 for Scott Walker. It is now time for the 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time poll closings: West Virginia, Ohio, and North Carolina. We apologize to our viewers for the electoral map is not correct, for it did not allow us to put a yellow mark on the 2024 electoral map. Out of the state of South Carolina, we can now project that Scott Walker is the projected winner of their 9 electoral votes. Out of the state of West Virginia, Scott Walker is the projected winner of their 4 electoral votes, Julian Castro doing remarkably better than where Hillary Clinton did in 2016 and where Elizabeth Warren did in 2020. Out of the state of Ohio, it is too close to call, 17 electoral votes from this state. Scott Walker is in the lead, and Scott Walker is behind Julian Castro. This was a solid Republican in 2020. 16 electoral votes up for grabs here. Julian Castro is in the lead, and the electoral map is on your screen now: 32 for Scott Walker and 3 for Julian Castro. It is now time for the 8 p.m. poll closings. Every state on your right has closed in their polls. At the state of Alabama, Scott Walker is the projected winner of their 8 electoral votes. Out of the state of Tennessee, Scott Walker is the projected winner, 11 electoral votes. Out of the state of Mississippi, Scott Walker is the projected winner of their 6 electoral votes. Out of the state of Missouri, 10 electoral votes will go to Scott Walker. Scott Walker will carry the state of Oklahoma's 7 electoral votes. Out of the state of Illinois, Julian Castro is the projected winner of their 18 electoral votes. Out of the state of Maryland, its projected winner is Julian Castro, almost 60% of the vote here for him. Out of the state of Delaware, it is 3 electoral votes that will go to Julian Castro. Julian Castro will also take the state of New Jersey, 14 electoral votes. Out of the state of Massachusetts, 11 electoral votes will go to Julian Castro. Out of the state of Rhode Island, 3 electoral votes will go to Julian Castro. The state of Maine, this is a flip from 2020. Julian Castro is the projected winner, 4 electoral votes. Out of the state of Connecticut, Julian Castro is the projected winner by almost a 20% lead, 7 electoral votes. Out of the District of Columbia, sorry we have an error there, it's actually 3 electoral votes, is now projected to go to Julian Castro. Out of the state of New Hampshire, this is a flip, 4 electoral votes will go to Julian Castro, 53% of the vote for him. The state of Virginia will go to Julian Castro, 13 electoral votes, much earlier than in 2020. And the state of Florida is too close to call, 31 electoral votes in total. Julian Castro is in the lead. And the electoral map is on your screen now, 93 for Julian Castro and 74 for Scott Walker. Out of the state of Pennsylvania, it is too close to call, 19 electoral votes. It is now time for the 8:30 p.m. poll closings in the state of Arkansas. The state of Arkansas will go to Scott Walker, 66% of the vote here for him, 6 electoral votes. It is now time for the 9 p.m. poll closings. All the states in yellow, their polls have closed. Out of the state of Louisiana, Scott Walker is the projected winner, 8 electoral votes. Out of the state of Kansas, Scott Walker is also the projected winner. We are now hitting the red wall, 6 electoral votes. Out of the state of Nebraska, all 5 of its electoral votes will go to Scott Walker by a bigger margin than in 2020. Out of the state of North Dakota, its 3 electoral votes will go to Scott Walker. Now out of the state of South Dakota, Scott Walker is the projected winner, 3 electoral votes. Out of the state of Wyoming, 3 electoral votes. The most conservative state in the Union will go to Scott Walker. Out of the state of New Mexico, Julian Castro is the projected winner, 5 electoral votes. Out of the state of New York, 28 electoral votes will go to Julian Castro. Out of the state of Minnesota, this is another flip from 2020. 9 electoral votes will go to Julian Castro by a considerable margin. Now out of the state of Colorado, another flip. Julian Castro is the projected winner, 56.6% of the vote here for him. Out of the state of Pennsylvania, another huge flip. 19 electoral votes will go to Julian Castro, 53% of the vote for him. Out of the state of Arizona, it is too close to call, 12 electoral votes from the state. And the electoral map is on your screen now, 108 for Scott Walker and 164 for Julian Castro. It is now time for the 10 p.m. poll closings. Montana, Iowa, Utah, and Nevada. Out of the state of Montana, Scott Walker is the projected winner, 3 electoral votes. Out of the state of Utah, 6 electoral votes will go to Scott Walker, 71% of the vote here for him. Out of the state of Nevada, 6 electoral votes will go to Julian Castro by a considerable margin. Out of the state of Iowa, it is too early to call, but Scott Walker is in the lead with their 6 electoral votes. And the electoral map is on your screen now, 117 for Scott Castro. It is now 10:45 p.m. Eastern Time, and stand by for some major projections. Out of the state of Wisconsin, Scott Walker's home state, now to surprise, projected to go to Scott Walker himself, 10 electoral votes. Now to the state of Iowa, 6 electoral votes will go to Scott Walker, 6 electoral votes. Out of the state of Michigan, its 15 electoral votes will flip from where it went in 2020 and go to Julian Castro with a very large lead. And the electoral map is on your screen now, 185 for Julian Castro and 133 for Scott Walker. It is now time for the 11 p.m. poll closing, sorry about that. California, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii. Out of the state of California, Julian Castro is the projected winner, 55 electoral votes. Out of the state of Oregon, Julian Castro is also the projected winner, 8 electoral votes. Out of the state of Washington will go to Julian Castro, 62% of the vote here for him. Out of the state of Hawaii, Julian Castro will carry the state's 4 electoral votes by a very large margin, 71% of the vote here for him. And now out of the state of Idaho, Scott Walker is the projected winner of their 4 electoral votes. And the electoral map is on your screen now. 270 needed to win. If you look at the map now, Julian Castro has 264 electoral votes, 6 away from the required amount to become the next president of the United States, while Scott Walker lags behind with 137 electoral votes. He has not even broken the 200 barrier, and the only states outlying are Alaska, Arizona, Texas, Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. It is now 12:09 a.m. Eastern Time, and stand by for some major projections. Out of the state of North Carolina, Scott Walker is the projected winner by a slim margin of less than 2%. Scott Walker will carry the state's 16 electoral votes. Out of the state of Ohio, projected to go to Scott Walker by a much smaller margin than in 2020, almost a 15-point difference. 17 electoral votes will go to Scott Walker. Out of the state of Florida, Julian Castro is the projected winner of their 31 electoral votes, and you know what this means. Julian Castro will become the next president of the United States. Out of this call in the state of Florida, he will become the next president of the United States. If you look at the electoral map now, he has surpassed the 270 mark, putting him at 295 electoral votes to Scott Walker's 170. Julian Castro has been elected the 46th president of the United States. If you look to your right, we have the electoral map pie chart. Out of 538 electoral votes, 18% have not been called yet, 30% has been called for Scott Walker, and 52% of all the electoral votes called will go to Julian Castro. It is now time for the 1 a.m. poll closings. Out of the state of Alaska will go to Scott Walker with a huge lead for him, 58% of the vote. And out of the state of Arizona, we interrupt our 1 a.m. poll closings to project the state of Arizona. This is a huge flip. Then from 2020, 12 electoral votes will go to Julian Castro. The Latino vote really helped him here. And the electoral map is on your screen now. 307 for Julian Castro to 173 for Scott Walker. It is now 3:15 a.m. Eastern Time, and stand by for a major projection. Out of the state of Georgia, Scott Walker is the projected winner in one of the closest Georgia races in modern U.S. history. 16 electoral votes, which was once safe red an election season ago, is now gone for Scott Walker by a margin of less than 2%. And the electoral map is on your screen now. 189 for Scott Walker, 307 for Julian Castro. We are having reports out of Texas that they will not certify the election results until the Secretary of State of Texas has certified them. It is currently too close to call, and it is currently leaning for Scott Walker. This one probably won't be called until the results are certified, and it most definitely won't be called today or tomorrow. The electoral pie chart shows Julian Castro with 57% of all the electoral votes, with Scott Walker with 35% and 8% uncalled for. It is now 1 week later, and stand by for a major projection. The Texas race has now been called. And the state of Texas will go to Julian Castro in the closest Texas presidential race in U.S. history. Its 42 electoral votes will go to Julian Castro. The Secretary of State has certified the results. Julian Castro will win by less than 20,000 votes. Julian Castro will take the state of Texas. This is a humongous flip from 2020. Remember that Donald Trump won the state by 17% in 2020. Julian Castro has won the state of Texas. And the electoral map is on your screen now. This is the final electoral map. Scott Walker has 189 electoral votes, and President-elect Castro has 349. Julian Castro took 65% of all the electoral votes last night, and Scott Walker took 35%, last week. 270 needed to win. Julian Castro most definitely surpassed that. And let's look at the election analysis. Remember, this was the map in 2020. Donald Trump took 331 electoral votes to Elizabeth Warren's 207. Democrats have made a net gain of 142 electoral votes. 142 electoral votes. However, they were not able to take back the states of Wisconsin. If we look up in the Northeast, this one had one congressional district out of the state of Maine, and Pennsylvania went to Trump. However, Julian Castro took both of those back and landed a victory for the Democrats there. If we look in Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, and Texas, all of those states went for Trump in 2020 against Elizabeth Warren. Julian Castro was able to spike Latino turnout, win Nevada, win Colorado, win Arizona by a small margin, and he even did what they said was impossible 2 years ago: flip the state of Texas. This one has been trending more Democratic. Republicans forgot to look at it, and it really hurt them in the end. If you look at the Rust Belt, remember Pennsylvania, I already said, went for Julian Castro. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota. All of those went for Trump in 2016, only one stayed, the state of Wisconsin, and that was only because Scott Walker was from that state. Now, if we look on the eastern coast, North Carolina and Georgia were tremendously close from where they were in 2020. Florida went for Trump in 2020 and went for Julian Castro. This is all because of Latino turnout, and the Castro campaign can really thank Latino turnout for spiking in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, and Texas, and Florida. And because of the past history with the Trump administration, white working class voters coming back in Maine, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Minnesota. So, thank you all for watching, and my upcoming videos are the ones that you guys will decide. Like I said, please comment suggestions below. You can find updates on my Twitter at LTE, standing for Let's Talk Elections, LTE Updates, and my Patreon is patreon.com/LTE for Let's Talk Elections, and comment Notification Squad if you're early to my new videos. And if you want to see my previous videos, click here to watch my recent election night on the left and watch my most popular election night on the right. And please subscribe if you like this content, and I'll see you all tomorrow.